So, into day 3 here on the Japan Deluxe Tours anime 9-day excursion. Today we actually went to Anime Japan, the world's largest anime convention. It was really different than what I thought it is. In the States, conventions are really more for fans. It's panels talking about different things. It's a massive dealer's room where you can buy all sorts of things. It's all about dressing up and just really celebrating the culture that is anime. Anime Japan was different. It was way more promotional. There were writers and directors and people who worked in the industry there who could sign autographs, and there were mascots. But most of the booths and the majority of the content there was for upcoming anime, things that are coming out this year, things that you can be looking forward to. It reminds you a lot of like E3, where it's more of what's coming up. It was pretty fun. There was a massive line to get in, but the line moved, and that was really nice because nobody likes lines. But as long as you're moving, at least you feel like you're making progress. I do think we could have benefited from a little more communication about layout stuff. I really wanted to find this cosplay section that was kind of off, far away from everything, and you kind of had to know how to get there. And by the time I did finally figure out how to get there, we kind of had to get going. But other than that, that's more minor things on me. Again, there was that small language barrier. I'm sure if I was more comfortable with Japanese, I would have found it a lot faster.
I see new Monica footage. We're gonna go see the Monica Magica. That might be one of my favorite animes ever, so if a new series is coming out and they finally decided to do it and it's any good, I'm gonna be excited. So I'm gonna go and watch that trailer and understand half of the stuff they're saying because none of it was in English yet. 用意した偽物かもしれないって思ってた。でなければこうしてまた会えるなんて。どう考えてもおかしいもの。でもわかる。あなたは本当のまどかだわ。So we all started as a big group all together, but then 2 people went left and 3 people went right, and then I kind of went left and everyone else went right. So now we're all kind of scattered. It's a good thing we're all going to meet up at one. It's just all of us want to see all these different things. There's so much going on here. It is so crowded. There's so many amazing things happening. Let's just say I'm really glad we all have watches and we all have a destination point that we have to meet up to eventually, because otherwise I would never find anybody ever again. This place is huge. Couple minutes, and guess what? I found her! I'm not alone anymore!
That was fun. And I had a few people, not a lot, but a few people asked to take my picture because I got to cosplay, and that was cool. But after that, we kind of got lost in the city. You know, when you're like, hey, what do you want to do today? Oh, I just want to get lost in the city. Well, that's kind of the feeling we got. We hopped on a couple of trains. We had to move from a few lines, and we went to Shibuya Crossing, which is basically the Tokyo equivalent of New York's Times Square. It's huge, it's loud, the intersection is crazy. For 40 seconds, traffic is stopped in all directions, and people just cross. It really is a spectacular sight to see. The energy, the people just being there, feeling that kinetic energy everywhere. That was really fun and really exciting, just to know that this is such a focal point of so many people's lives. And while we were having fun being idiots there, some people actually have to, you know, live their lives in their crossing because that's their commute. That's so weird. People actually commute like this every day. That is cool. I'm sure if you do it enough, it stops being fun. But just think, every day you could walk through Shibuya Crossing. How amazing is that?
That's it, we're going through Shibuya Crossing. so many people. See you, Moana.
We took a couple of the commuter trains. The Yamamoto line is the big one that I'll be going on again later in the week. But we got to see how a lot of people commute to and from. And being on the train actually really gives you a scale of just how big Tokyo really is. If you're looking at some metro lines, you realize the train will cycle through every 20 minutes or so. Meanwhile, there are lines here where it's every hour. The trains are constantly moving, and it could take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours just to complete one line. And that really gives you the scale. We were just hopping from stop to stop, and we were on the train for 18 minutes at a time. But we went through about 3 different trains that we had to go to. That just really gives you an idea of Tokyo's a big city. But being on the train, it gives you the most appreciation, I think, for just how the city is laid out. You really get to see the skyline, you get to see a lot of the neighborhoods, a lot of the buildings, the billboards, the lights, the sounds, and you really get an appreciation for just how piecemeal everything in Tokyo is. There's old buildings, new buildings, architecturally spectacular buildings, generic buildings, and they all just work. They're all crammed together, filling up every square inch of space. Nothing is left to just be open, except for a couple dedicated parks here and there. There's a lot of green, but there is also a lot of buildings, and they are all tall. I have yet to see a building that is less than like 10 stories, except for there are a couple old 2-story houses where people live, homes and whatnot. A surprise that they kind of sprung on us. I didn't realize we were going to get the opportunity to do this, but they actually took us to one of the popular tourist sites right outside Fuji TV, which is a building that I really wanted to see. I love the architecture. I love a lot of the cultural impact. Fuji TV is also responsible for putting a lot of my favorite anime on the air. They're the ones who run it, the producers, yada yada yada.
So we're standing in front of Fuji TV, which not only airs some of my favorite anime ever, it is also the famous scene where Mayoda-samon first cast the cloud over the entire city of Tokyo in Digimon, and where Wizardmon unfortunately lost his life and then haunted him, and they had to come back in season 2 to set him free. Fuji TV is an icon. It's one of those buildings that just tells you where you are in the city, and it is awesome.
I was on the route when we were heading to see the life-size Gundam, which unfortunately was already disassembled. They had mentioned that they were tearing one down because they're going to build a new one this fall. So we got to see the skeletal remains of what used to be its legs. But that was kind of cool. They didn't mention, but there was this tulip garden right beside it, and it was gorgeous. You really could appreciate just how pretty all the flowers. There had to be thousands of bulbs, and they were all blooming, and there were cherry trees, and the weather was perfect, and you were right on the water, and it just felt nice. That was a good surprise that I hadn't expected. The tour guides today were a little less explainy. They did give us a lot of fun facts, but today was really more about us just living and experiencing Tokyo for what it is. And I think being on the train was probably the best part of that, because it really gave you an idea of what the day-to-day life is, what it actually means to live in Tokyo. Transportation is a big part of being in the city, and that was an interesting kind of thing to be able to be a part of it. And hopefully we weren't too annoying to all the people who were just trying to live their lives and get home, because those poor people. I'm sure they're used to it because tourists, but those poor people. Day 3 of the tour, we have officially become confident enough to make new friends. We've met a handful of people that we actually, I think, enjoy talking to. We have a few things in common. Just that's cool to say that we're not just the three of us on our own.
And you gave one of them a gift.
I did. I gave an Australian boy $1, and because he was fascinated with the way that our currency looked, especially with the whole Illuminati pyramid conspiracy theme on the back of it. Was kind of hoping I might get something in return, but he didn't have a dollar. Although he did have that 5. I could have done with $5 Australian. That's what, 4.30 ish. It doesn't matter. No. That was funny. We have a good group of characters traveling with us, and they're all good people. That's it for us today. There does seem to be a small hiccup when it comes to being on the tour. The tour guides here are great. They're really friendly, they're informative, and they really help us out wherever we need. However, it's becoming very clear that the Japan Tour Deluxe in the States, in America, based in Los Angeles, is completely separate from the tour guides here in Japan. Like they essentially, I think the tour company hires the tour guides from here, but they're not actually employees of the tour. So sometimes there's miscommunications, there's things aren't being clarified, the tour guides aren't as familiar with everything that's supposed to be on the tour. Like last night we were supposed to be treated to dinner, and they didn't realize that, so instead we were treated to dinner tonight. And some basic information like hotel switches, what happens with luggage, who's responsible for what, where do we have to be. For the most part, they're handy in answering questions about Japan, but when it comes to tour-specific stuff, they seem to have to really work with the home office in LA and figure out what's going on there. Nothing completely detrimental, but it is something to be aware of. Always verify and keep an eye out, make sure things are still running smoothly, and ask questions. They don't seem to be offended by it or anything. It's just everyone needs to know. Tomorrow's going to be my big day. Tomorrow's going to be a big day for me. But it was fun. I did appreciate going to Anime Japan. I don't know if I'd ever go back, but I'm glad I did it once. Johnny?